Hey, I'm recording this video for those of you who missed the live stream or left before I was able to fix the issue with the sound. So yeah, I've decided that it would be nice to go over some of the most important topics that we discussed today and give you some updates. I will show you what I'm working on, but first actually I want to ask you a question. Even though it's not a live stream, I still want to chat with you. My question to you is, in your opinion, what do you think is the most difficult or challenging thing in oil painting? What is something that you might have been struggling with or you are struggling with right now in regards to oil painting? I'm curious to see the answers because in my experience, many people say that it's color mixing. I myself have never really struggled with mixing colors, but I know that many people do. So if you want me to talk more about color mixing or answer your questions, I'll be happy to do so. Okay, let's move on now and let me show you what I'm working on. Some days ago I started this painting that you can see behind me. I'm gonna show you a close-up of it right now that I snapped before starting the stream, just because I don't really trust the quality of the stream and I wanted to show you this in a hopefully decent quality. So this is the painting that I'm working on. I also put the palette close to it. It's, of course, it's just the beginning. And if you're wondering why it's so abruptly cut on one side of it, it's because some of the hair gonna fall onto the face and cover this part of the face. That's why it's not finished on the side. Also, I want to say that I'm filming the whole painting process and this all will be in this month's real-time painting video. So let's move on to the main topic of today's stream and after stream, like this video, whatever we're having right now. As I've told you before, I started this painting a couple of days ago and I let this part dry for the sake of the stream so that I would be able to talk about glazing. I have talked about it before a couple of times, and you probably know that if you have seen some of my older videos. I have decided to talk about glazing today because I think it's such a useful and just wonderful technique that is very underrated and underused by many. And that is why I wanted to talk about glazing today and bring more attention to it. Glazing is an oil painting technique, and it's basically applying a thin transparent layer of paint on top of a dry opaque layer to add some color, saturation, adjust hues, add depth, and so on. I will show you how I do it in a moment, but first I want to preface this by saying that there is nothing in life, in nature, that is consistently one color. What I mean is that everything has these little hues, subtle tones, right? I'm sure you agree with me. So now if we are talking about portraiture specifically, painting people, faces, there are so many factors involved that can change the appearance, the hues. Let me give you a few. For example, the surroundings, the environment that can reflect on the figure. Lighting is a big thing. For example, if we're painting a portrait, right? And there is a lighting source from here, there is a lamp with a warm, evening lighting and a cooler daylight coming from the window from that side. In this case, you will see that this part of the face has a different color group from this side. Just an example that how easy it is to change the hues. But today, actually, I wanted to focus on some other factor, which is the features, the predispositions that some parts of the face have. Let me explain what I mean by that. Generally, not always, but in many cases, cheeks tend to have this redness, red undertone, even if it's very subtle. The area underneath the eyes is usually more purple and the area here is more blue. The forehead is usually a bit more green or yellow. The area around the mouth is usually more yellow, and for many men, even if they are nicely shaved, this area where mustache would go and the beard have a little shadow is a little bit more gray or blue. And again, I'm talking about subtle hues, but this subtlety can go a long way. What I'm saying is that if you pay attention to some of these little changes in color, some of these subtle hues, it can dramatically improve your work. I have gathered a couple of examples that I want to share with you in regards to this. This is one of my recent works where I was trying to go for a cooler skin tone, but I used all kinds of colors for the skin here. Of course, I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it. Of course, I'm not saying that, I've mastered it. But I think that demonstrates what I'm trying to tell you. Let me show you another work of mine. Here's the painting that I've done with a darker skin tone. But again, here you can see some of the things that I have just told you about. Now, I want to show you some of the works of other artists that I admire. Here is the painting by Joshua LaRocque. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I really like his work, and again, look how many tones and hues, how real it looks. If you separate these tones out, it's gonna be even more visible to you. Let me show you. Look, that's how many tones he uses for the skin, right? And that's just wonderful in my opinion. Here's another painting of his. Very subtle, very soft. This is something that I look up to and really like. Here's the painting of an old master from 18th or 19th century. It's just a fragment, it's not a whole painting. I couldn't find the whole painting, but I think it demonstrates my point very nicely. And here's, I think, the last painting that I wanted to share with you. It's a painting by Daniel Sprigg. I like how the areas where the light hits the face are quite cool, so the lighting is blue and cool, and how the artist contrasts it with warm yellow background behind. So to tie it all together, as you may know, I do most of the work on the first layer, like 95–98% of the whole painting. I like to paint wet on wet on the first layer. But then I usually have like the second layer where I do small adjustments or, fix some things, change some things, but usually those are very small things. And then on the third layer, I do glazing. Sometimes I don't need glazing because I try to achieve all this variety of colors, different tones. On the first layer, when I paint wet on wet, that's why I always show you how my palette changes, and I add to those colors that I have premixed, I add a lot of this reds, blues, greens. That is to create this variety of tones. So the glazing for me is this extra step that helps me achieve something that I haven't quite was able to do on the first layer, or maybe something I didn't notice. Some of these hues are very subtle. It is this extra step, extra mile that you can go to make your painting look more realistic and take it to the next level. Even if you're not painting realism, by the way, you like to paint more abstract things or you like figurative art, nonetheless, I think that it is much more interesting if you use a variety of colors as opposed to just one color group. I would like to show you how I make some progress with this painting, but the thing is that I've already done that on the live stream. So I think what I'll do is I will put the painting parts from the live stream here now so that you can see what I've done. Of course, I'm gonna mute it for two reasons. First of all, I had some technical issues with sound in this live stream, so it was very noisy and hard to hear. And in the beginning, it didn't have any sound at all, so that was fun. I want to remind you that I do glazing here. I purposefully let this part of the painting dry for me to be able to show my glazing technique and, tell you more about glazing. I don't like to do it in parts like that. I think it's best to do glazing when the whole painting is finished and you're just making adjustments in the hues, tones, and values. Now let me give you a couple of tips about glazing that I have discovered. It's just gonna be like some bullet points, one after another. Paints with transparent or semi-transparent qualities are the best for glazing. relatively smooth surface makes it way easier to do glazing, and it's better to add more medium and less pigment, meaning that even if you want to make some significant changes, it's better to do it in a couple of consecutive thin layers rather than one big layer, just because it will spread more evenly. This is my cat mewing. He came to see how I'm doing. Okay, I think it's time to wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it or found it useful. Happy holidays everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.